Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Tuesday Tips. I am Michael Barber, your host every week here on our YouTube page at Charter School Capital. I'm really happy to be welcoming back a former guest of ours, and our guest this week is Caroline Poland. Caroline, how are you doing?
Doing well, excited to be here today.
Thanks again for joining us. For those school leaders who this may be your first Tuesday Tips here on YouTube, we're here every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, talking all things challenges for school leaders, or should I say, challenges that school leaders face. We're really happy and honored to welcome back Caroline Poland, as I mentioned earlier. Last week, we did had an incredible webinar, and about almost 300 school leaders joined us for a conversation on student mental health and well-being. So we asked Caroline to come back and answer a few more questions for us. As you know, Tuesday Tips is 10 minutes straight to the point. We hop right into the questions. And so without further ado, I'm going to tee up my first question here for Caroline. Caroline, what are some practical techniques for helping students identify a safety anchor for emotional regulation?
So, a safety anchor is really meant to help students or our faculty or staff stay in the present moment, grounded, rooted in the here and now, where their trauma isn't especially important for things like flashbacks or test anxiety. So, with a safety anchor, we just want to identify something in the present moment in the classroom that feels in some way good. That can be funny, calming, safe, secure, something that'll just feel good and present in the moment. People can work, and especially if they have a secure relationship with their teacher, that can work, except that people sometimes are there, sometimes are out sick or traveling. And so if they're going to choose a person, we want to have a backup that's an item. That could be a pencil of theirs, a picture that's up on the wall, a color that feels good. So it really can be anything that we can cue them. Maybe you can have a hunt around your classroom. Let's look for things that feel good or fun to us, and write those down. Keep them on their desk for a while just to help them memorize that, so that you can cue them. Everyone, look at your safety anchor right now. Take a deep inhale, hard exhale, and we can just begin to incorporate that proactively into our classroom so we have it reactively when we need it.
Yeah, I think you mentioned, and this I might be getting confused with our second question here around, some examples of activities that help promote emotional regulation. But you mentioned a fidget spinner last week during our conversation, and I have two of those on my desk for my own emotional regulation at times
Mhm.
during meetings or just when I need to focus on something and I'm getting distracted by what's happening on screen.
Mhm.
On that second question, could you provide some examples of activities that help promote emotional regulation when kids are getting to that point where they need something to help bring them back into that conscious mind state?
Sure. So I went into detail during the webinar on that. So for more information, I encourage you to go back and watch that, because I actually teach you how to do some of these things and cue that. But really, what we're looking at are body-based movements, especially paired with breathing. We really regulate based on how we move and how we breathe. And that's hard because when we go into the classroom, we're supposed to sit, listen, stay organized. And so, what we really need to do is incorporate, again, proactive and reactive movements with breathing in order to keep ourselves regulated and our students regulated. But the webinar is a great place to go for that.
Yeah, and for those of you who may not have joined us last week, you can just hop on to charterschoolcapital.com and search Student Mental Health Webinar, and that first result that you'll see will get you access to the webinar. I don't have to give any information. We've got everything posted up from our conversation, as well as a really great handout that Caroline provided last week. So go ahead and check that out at our website. Caroline, third question for you. How do students' feelings of safety impact their ability to learn and make decisions? I think this question is so important, and getting the chance to listen to you last week on how important it is that they feel safe, just the impacts that it has on learning and that their ability to make decisions is just so key. Can you unpack this question for us?
Yeah. So again, I go into way more detail in the webinar than I do here. We have safety, the fact that we are physically safe or emotionally safe, and then felt safety, which is knowing and believing that we're safe. And we really need both incorporated into our classrooms and our workplaces in order to kind of holistically be and know that we're safe. When we are safe, our prefrontal cortex is engaged. We're not in our fight or flight threat perception systems. And so when we are in our prefrontal cortex, our wise executive function, where we learn and organize and plan the things that we need to learn in the classroom, that's all stored up there. And so, really, in order to learn, we have to be safe because our body cares first and foremost about survival. If we're not safe and we don't feel safe, our body, our nervous system is going to be cued to that instead of the less essential thing, which is learning.
Yeah, and I just encourage you all to take a listen to last week's webinar because there's so much good data and insights that Caroline unpacks around this question. And she's doing it, by the way, you're doing an incredible job of like giving us the top level summation, but there's so much to talk about here. I do want to encourage people to take some time to hop back into the webinar and take a listen to all of the incredible information that was shared last week. Have a question for you here. Can you share some insights on your work in establishing healthy, trauma-informed organizations and the impact it has on productivity and well-being in the workspace?
Yeah. It's so important for supporting productivity and learning, and also, by the way, educator retention, which we talked about in that teacher mental health and well-being webinar as well. But we can't unmarry the two because, again, productivity and learning occur in our prefrontal cortex. And so if we aren't safe, if we don't feel connected to people, if we're not emotionally regulated and feeling okay in our bodies, then our bodies, our minds don't care about learning. They don't care about the next task that we have. So again, I go into a lot of research in these different areas, but we find that when we incorporate aspects of this trauma-informed care, trauma-informed principles into our classroom, we find decreased acting out, misbehavior, decreased discipline is needed, decreased anxiety around testing, especially standardized tests, increased resilience. It supports our mental health and well-being as a whole. And so we really need to be incorporating these things for success in the classroom, for learning objectives to be met, and of course, for our students to do as well as they can do on those standardized tests. Without creating trauma around the standardized testing process or increased anxiety, which I know can then carry into the rest of life.
Yeah. Last question for you here. We promise everyone 10 minutes. We're at our 8-minute mark, so I'm going to give you 2 to 3 to answer this one. Beyond the webinar last week, you did an incredible session, 90 minutes, and this conversation, obviously, a quick 10. Any additional resources or additional training that you can recommend to educators that need to effectively incorporate some of these methods in terms of, creating safety anchors for emotional regulation, the example activities, or anywhere else where they can find more information or get more access to you as well?
Right. So if you go to my website, pullenandassociates.com, there's a form that you can fill out to reach out. We can connect. There's work that I do individually with organizations where I have a more pointed conversation. There's more back and forth and Q&A specific to your classrooms, your schools, with follow-up after you've had a few months to incorporate this. Let's come back around. So, of course, you can reach out to me. My YouTube channel, Pullen and Associates, has educator specific resources, and we'll walk you through some of that. This is kind of a different way of thinking about it, but our own individual counseling really is helpful in supporting that, because as far as we can take ourselves, the further we can take other people on their journeys and meet them where they're at, widening our window of tolerance, regulating ourselves, all of that. And so we can take those aspects from individual counseling into our work as educators. Research in that area, if you just go to Google and you search these different pillars and principles and the research there's a lot that has been studied and is currently being studied in that area. And then, like I said, just doing that continued education and training for your staff, both for incorporating these things at an organizational level and at an individual classroom level as well.
Such good insights there, and we appreciate again you taking the time to work with us on our conversation the last couple of weeks around both teacher and school leader and student mental health and well-being. Caroline mentioned during our last two webinars, we are in the middle of developing a guide that will come across and be published over the next few weeks for you all to have access to. So check out our website in the next few weeks for that guide as well. If you register for either one of the webinars or just drop us a note at charterschoolcapital.com, we've been more than happy to get you access to that guide as well. And with that, we are just over the 10-minute mark, which is my promise every week to our school leaders that join us here for Tuesday Tips. So I'm going to say thanks to Caroline Poland for joining us. As always, Caroline, it's great to see your face and have you here again. This isn't the end of our conversations. I'm sure we'll be back next year at some point with some, updated information for school leaders as they head into 2024 and the 2025 school year, which I can't believe we're already talking about at this point. It's crazy that it's mid-October. I don't understand where the time has gone, but that's what it is. It is. With that said, we'll say a quick thanks again to Caroline, and thanks for everybody for joining us here on Tuesday Tips. We'll be back again in the near future, Tuesday, right here on YouTube, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.